And welcome to the Trade, Commerce, and Tourism Committee. I'm waiting for Councilman Tom LaBonge to be our second, and then Councilmember Rosendahl apparently is in gridlock, which we all know what that means. So here's what we're going to do. I believe we're going to continue item 7 at the request of the airport. Then, without objection, please welcome the great Councilmember Tom LaBonge. And then without objection, I was going to take, let's approve items 3 and 6 on consent. Is that okay with you, Mr. LaBonge?
Very good.
And then I would, you still want to start with 2? Or now, we're waiting for you. Why don't we take item 1, which is the marathon issue. Is that good?
Very good. Let me ask you a question, Janice. What do we got, 6 there? Could I have that pin, Mr. Clerk? Thank you very much. Give me the roll call again on what we continue.
We are going to continue item 7, the canines in kennels.
Right.
We're going to continue that. And then without objection, I'd like to approve 3 and 6 on consent.
Okay.
And then I was going to move to item 1, the marathon.
And how we do it on item 4 and 5? We're going to hold that for later on this morning?
Yeah, I'm going to take that in order.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Everything ready?
I'm ready.
You have a pen?
I do. It's coming.
Permanently?
I always do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 1 is motion LaBonge, Hahn, Rosendahl, introduced on April 8th, 2009, proposing that the council instruct the CAO and CLA and request the city attorney to negotiate an amendment to the city's contract with LA Marathon to change the day of the LA Marathon from a holiday Monday to a Sunday in March of each year, beginning with the 2010 event. The motion would also authorize the mayor to execute the contract amendment and would direct the CAO, CLA, Transportation Department, and other city departments as appropriate to meet with LA Marathon to develop a course route for council approval. CLA, CAO, and city attorney representatives have been invited to attend this meeting to discuss the matter.
Thank you very much. Well, Councilmember LaBonge, this is our motion that we brought forward after, after over 20 years of a very well-run marathon on the first Sunday in March. As you know, the council members very abruptly changed that date as a part of the changing the owners of the marathon. But it was changed without any impact studies, knowing exactly what it would mean to move the marathon to a holiday Monday. You and I actually voted against that. And since then...
Who voted first?
I think I voted.
Yeah, Hahn, LaBonge. I just wanted to make sure you knew the alphabet.
Oh, okay. Now I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
But since that time, we've heard from a number of the actual people that we probably should have surveyed before we made that decision, which was the actual runners who run in the marathon, who have come to us with a number of issues, ranging from a lot of people don't actually get off on certain holidays, and to the weather. And the marathon this year is going to be held on the Memorial Day weekend, and many of the runners have told us that that could be very detrimental to their health because of the heat. So you and I brought forth this motion to reverse that decision and actually put this marathon back to a Sunday in March. So what I thought we would do is hear, I thought maybe a minute apiece. We have 12 public speakers on this item. Why don't we hear from the public first, and then we'll discuss this issue. Okay, Carrie Quackenbush, Michelle Fleener, Howard Sunken. First 3. Let's take 4. And Marty Bayer. And obviously, if you the buzzer rings and you haven't finished your thought, we're going to give you a couple of extra seconds. But we just thought we would do a minute apiece so everybody could be heard. Okay. Let's see, how did I call that? Carrie, Michelle, Howard, and Marty.
I'm Carrie. Can I begin?
Yes, please.
My name is Carrie Quakenbush. I'm the program director of the Los Angeles office of the National AIDS Marathon Training Program. I realize I only have a minute. I would just like to say that the date changes for our current program for the LA Marathon. In October, before the date changes were announced, we had over 500 runners who were registered for our program. Our beneficiary is AIDS Project Los Angeles. With over 500 runners, we were projected to raise, they raised money while we trained them to run a marathon. They were projected to raise in excess of $800,000. As of registration time, because many people walked away because of the date changes for various reasons, we now have a total of 207 runners, down from over 500. Projected revenue will be about $331,000, down from $800,000. All of that money goes directly to AIDS Project Los Angeles, our beneficiary. They have a representative, a friend of mine who's here today. Tough economic times for everybody, especially for nonprofits. And that's a huge decrease from what we were projected to raise. It's very unfortunate, and I would really hope that you would move it back to March.
Thank you for those comments. Michelle.
My name is...
Thank you very much. Next. Just kidding. For my future sister-in-law, I got to give her extra time.
Give Michelle a hand.
My name is Michelle Fleener, Executive Director of Students Run LA, and I'm here to thank you both, all three of you, for showing leadership in bringing forward the motion to change the date back to a March. We are an at-risk youth program. We train over 3,000 students to run the LA Marathon, and we have 450 volunteer teacher leaders, and pushing the date to May has severely impacted our program. Some of the teachers on year-round schools are off track. They have to come back and still train the kids. The heat is an issue. They have testing right now, which is an issue in their training. We have a scholarship program that a May date has severely impacted because to qualify they have to run the marathon. So now that's been pushed back. It's just severely impacted, and we strongly support your efforts in the March date. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And Students Run LA is just a great organization, and you brought up some very key issues on us making our decision. Thank you. Howard.
Good morning. Howard Sunken on behalf of the McCourt Group, the actual owner of the Los Angeles Marathon. Thank you, the two of you, very much for your leadership on this. We made a decision back last fall during the transfer of ownership that, quite frankly, has turned out to be a wrong decision. I will take full responsibility for making that decision. But when you make a decision that's wrong, the right course of action is to fix it. And on behalf of Mr. McCourt and all of us in the McCourt Group, and Russ Pillar, the president of the Los Angeles Marathon, who's here with us this morning, we ask for your support to move this back to the third Sunday in March. We think that is an ideal location because of the spacing of the other world-class marathons in the world. And we don't get caught up in the Academy Award weekend, which has been a historic problem. We think the weather is perfect for that weekend. And just to give you a quick set of numbers, and I know I'm down to 2 seconds.
Go ahead.
As of 8:30 yesterday morning, we had 9,162 runners signed up for the Los Angeles Marathon. Last year, 17,000 people finished the Los Angeles Marathon. We know there'll be additional numbers coming in, and we anticipate, a pretty good growing of that base in the next 10 days. But we are going to be substantially off, which causes huge financial detriment to the city, to us as an organization, and it's all because of the date change.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's time to move it back. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Great game last night with the LA Dodgers. The record 12 consecutive wins at home.
And let's give the Angels a hand, too, because they won in Oakland, just to be fair,
Okay.
if there's any Angel fans. No offense.
All right. I'm a Dodgers fan. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'm Marty Bayer. I'm the Special Events Manager at We Spark Cancer Support Center out in the San Fernando Valley. We're a new official charity of the Los Angeles Marathon this year, and I projected 150 walkers in the 5K for us. I'll be lucky to pull 25 out of the hat this time because of the holiday date. It has been a real challenge on that level. I also want to mention that the Orange County Marathon was last week. As you all know, Revlon is this coming weekend, which for the cancer charities is a huge issue. We were in complete conflict with that this year. And also, as you know, the San Diego Marathon is 6 days later. So this has been an issue. Also, I want to point out, because Rod Dixon gave me some information, and I'd forgotten about this. In 1998, the March date of the LA Marathon perfectly positioned the event, and 8 countries used it as an Olympic qualifier. Putting it back in March puts that back on the table again. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Very much. Thank you. Okay, now we have the next 4 will be Dwayne Wilson, Carolyn Aguayo, Ken Sewell, and
Hi, Carolyn.
I'm having a hard time reading this.
Yeah, let me-
Tassinia Ayab, what's the first name?
Runners Advisory Council on 5822 South La Cienega.
Okay.
Tassinia?
Oh, thank you. How do I say your first name?
Eob.
Eob. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You 4, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Aguayo. I'm Director of Communications for Ability First. I'm here also representing Team Parkinson, which is also an official charity of the Los Angeles Marathon. Ability First is a legacy charity of the marathon, and over the last several years has raised nearly $800,000 to fund programs and services to children and adults with disabilities in Southern California. We have the largest marathon 5K team made up of our donors, our program participants with disabilities, and their family supporters, and our staff who come together on one day in one location to celebrate our unique abilities and the city of Los Angeles. It's one of our goals to have our program participants, specifically with disabilities, walk alongside or run alongside their non-disabled peers in the city. By moving the marathon back to March, Ability First will be able to continue our strong fundraising efforts and raise awareness of our mission of helping individuals with disabilities realize their full potential. Many of our participants are unable to participate in this May's event, and we urge you to move it back to March.
Thank you for those comments.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of the Wildwoods Foundation, one of the official charities of the LA Marathon, and I'm here with my fellow charities to voice our collective support for moving the marathon back to a Sunday in March. And since I'm the one who was raised as the son of a choir director in a Baptist church, I'm always the one who gets tapped to talk about issues with faith-based community. And the primary thing that we official charities as a group want to make very clear is that we in no way, shape, or form want to be seen in opposition to or disregarding the concerns of any church. We have heard the voices that have spoken out about this issue. We understand the impact that this citywide event has on churches, especially those along the route. And what we have to say to the churches is join us. All of these churches are nonprofit organizations as well. There's no reason that they should not be a part of the LA Marathon Official Charities Program. We want to open the doors to the faith-based community and invite them to become more involved in this amazing day, much the way that the churches are in Chicago, which is the country's largest marathon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good morning. My name is Ken Sewell. I'm president of the LA Lakers. The LA Lakers is celebrating their 20th year as an organization. Our mission was and has been for the last 20 years to bring couch potato Los Angelinos from mile 1 up through mile 26 in a 31-week program. We have been successful with thousands of runners, and I want to tell you that this is one of the good things that happen in Los Angeles on a day-to-day basis that no one recognizes or realizes or doesn't get a whole lot of publicity. But there's a whole lot of people out there that use the LA Marathon as a life-changing experience and something that they can look to as a real accomplishment in their lives. So we urge you and we thank you for your support, especially Mr. Labange over the years, the running community, for supporting us for many, many years concerning Griffith Park and Jimmy Stewart and all those other things that we did with Mayor Reardon over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah.
Good morning, members of the City Council. My name is Eob Tassema, and as a member of the Runners Advisory Council and also as a veteran pace leader for the Los Angeles Roadrunners, which is the affiliate organization that prepares runners for the LA Marathon, I just wanted to mention the fact, in addition to all of the reasons that we gave on April 8th, that one of the reasons that only this committee can appreciate is the revenue stream that this possible people's run can actually generate. And with marathons springing up all around us, from Orange County to Santa Clarita, from Pasadena, and now to the inaugural Malibu Marathon that's scheduled in November, one of the things that we have to painfully and intimately understand and appreciate is the fact that if we keep this date to still be much later than March, then we lose the potential revenue that this committee can actually oversee and monitor as far as generating for from the marathon.
Thank you very much, which is exactly why we held this in Commerce, Trade, and Tourism, because it's a huge benefit to the city. Thank you. Okay, Lou Briones, Cliff Housko, Jeff Urban, and John Ball.
Why don't you start?
Go ahead.
Thank you again for allowing us to speak before you. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to reiterate a few points that have been made previously. Health, obviously, is a huge issue. Many have talked about the attendance and or loss of it if we continue this date, but I'd like to just state that not only do we have the runners that we're not going to get their family members, their children, their cousins, their brothers, so that takes that multiple and multiplies it up many, many times. The clergy, I would address that they should support such a positive event, people doing nothing but good for themselves and their health. And then obviously the conflicting date, as a Vietnam combat veteran, I have other plans that date, and I think that holds true for many other people. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
For your service to the country. Lou.
Hi, Lou Briones. I'm a legacy runner. I've run every LA Marathon since 1986, the very first one, as has Cliff. And I'm also the chairman of the Runners Advisory Council, which was formed for the purpose of addressing this issue. And what we've done is we've gotten together, we've brought in the LA Leggers, the road runners, and we've heard from literally thousands of runners that were completely thrown off their training schedules by this date change. And we urge that the motion get passed to restore the traditional race date. We've done this race in March for 23 years. It was working very, very well, and we need to restore that.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jeff Urband. I'm an average runner who has completed 41 marathons, and I wanted to thank
Hardly
you.
average.
Well, middle of the pack. And I just wanted to say, having run Chicago in the heat, I can attest personally that it's not a good time for the runners, and the health and safety of all the participants need to be considered above everything else, I believe, because that's the main reason. Los Angeles has a rich tradition in marathons, and I think that we need to continue that by switching it to a time when it's cooler and, as you know, more beneficial and health conscious. In addition, we have petitions that have been signed, I don't know, by 2 million runners.
Wow.
That we'd like to present. Yeah, and
2 million average runners.
Well, I only have 11 seconds. This is a booklet of people that have written to the Los Angeles Times talking about the date, and just want you to take that into consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, John Ball from Team Parkinson. I just wanted to say that our registrations have normally run between 200 and 250 people at the LA Marathon, and it's our premier event. In fact, we were formed as a charity of the Los Angeles Marathon. We're down less than half, between a third and a half of where we were normally, and our fundraising is impacted the same ratio. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, last two speakers on this item are John Heathcliff and Arnold Sachs.
Give it to the clerk right there.
And the city attorney, Jenny.
You go on.
Go ahead.
Start the clock
Go
over,
ahead.
will you? Eric, start the clock over.
Tom said for 2 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Council members, I just wanted to share my views. I'm John Heathcliff. I'm with Public Counsel. We're a member of the official charities. The first thing I want to tell you is that the team who is running the LA Marathon are exceptional. Russ Pillar, Nick Curl, Ginger, Peter. We have an extraordinary team in place this year for the future, which, as you well know, we did not have in place a short time ago. So we're very hopeful and optimistic. A couple of things I'd like to just add. One is that our organization is an official charity. We're down probably about 80%. We raise about $100,000 a year to help people with free legal services throughout the region. And altogether, the official charities, over 50 of us, help tens of thousands of people. So imagine with cutbacks in social services, when you have 50 and 80% declines in the revenues that they're raising from through the LA Marathon's official charity program, it's devastating. So I can't thank you enough for putting this motion forward, for the McCourt Group for moving in this direction. It will truly revolutionize and create a new LA Marathon that we can all be proud of.
Thank you very much. Arnold.
Yes, good morning. Unfortunately, having been outside, I haven't heard a lot of the commentary, but having followed the changes in the marathon and the votes in
Thank you
front
very
of the
much.
city council,
Just kidding.
how much is it going to cost the city? It was a city asset that was sold out under the pretext of moving the date from March to February in committee that was heard the day before it was heard in council. The change to February was unanimous. There was never a vote to change anything from February to May.
Okay.
That was part of the contract. I just was in transportation, happened to overhear somebody talking about how they had a contract for something. Action had to be taken to approve the contract, and the contract is in place. So the question is, how much is it going to cost the city and the public to change the contract to buy back an asset that the city had in the first place? That's all. I mean, it's as simple as that. People looking to get relief here don't realize the process that took place, that it was approved in city council and everything went along with it. And then after the
We
fact,
didn't go along with it.
after the fact, the contract stated that they had an opportunity to change the date, and they changed it unilaterally without having a hearing in front of the city council. It was just changed from
Thank you very much.
from February to May without any hearing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And who do we have from the
CLA's office.
CLA's office.
CAO's office.
CAO's office. Basically, what this motion is asking is that we instruct the CAO and the CLA and the city attorney to negotiate an amendment to the city's contract with LA Marathon to change the day of the LA Marathon from a holiday Monday to a Sunday in March of each year. Tell us what that process involves.
What would happen is once the council authorizes staff to go ahead and the city attorney to help draft an amendment to change the date, that's all that would be needed, and then both sides would execute the contract.
And we've already heard from LA Marathon that they're willing to make this amendment to the contract.
Yes. And just to clarify, the marathon organizer, the McCourt Group and LA Marathon, came to the city last summer when our former contractor was not in a position to continue producing this event on behalf of the city.
Was running away like a sprinter would run, not like a marathon runner.
Well, I didn't want to go into all the details, but yes, so the McCourt Group came in and we were able to negotiate an agreement where they're going to be paying the city for our incremental costs on the day of the event to put on the event in the city of LA, as well as we're working much closer with them. We've established a working committee, which we never had before, as part of the agreement that was executed in September, where the city is going to be kept much more closely informed as to the progress of the planning, the sponsor situation.
So as a result of that, making this amendment is probably easier because you have kind of this infrastructure in place.
Yes,
with,
we do.
With the McCourt Group.
And we're very well aware from not only the McCourt Group and LA Marathon, but from the running community, from the nonprofit organizations that are a part of this, that Memorial Day is just not conducive. And I think it's especially important that, honestly, we would not have an event without runners, and the running community has been very vocal that it's not that they don't want to support the race, but it's just going to be so hot, or
Right.
it's potentially so hot.
Right.
on
We forgot to
Memorial Day.
we forgot to consult with the runners before this decision was made.
And for a variety of reasons, it just makes sense.
Let me ask a question to maybe all of you. One of the things I've heard is, people who run the marathon need to plan. They need to plan. They need to start training. It's a whole scheduled thing. Obviously, people who are coming into town need to plan vacation time. I mean, it's a whole planning thing. And they want to know sooner than later whether or not we're making this change. If we authorize this on the city council, how long would it take to negotiate this amendment to the contract? Is this like a huge process, like some of the other things we do in the city?
I think once council approves this change, it's pretty much administrative in terms of developing the amendment, getting it executed. It's not really a negotiation at all.
Okay.
It'd have to be in a public, after the negotiations made, would have to come back to committee or council?
Council could authorize execution of the amendment.
And you could just do it?
Yes.
Okay.
The motion actually already indicates that the mayor be authorized to execute the contract. So
this was
as long as it's within the parameters of what you've authorized in the motion, there would be
Right.
no need to come back.
Right. Any other comments on this? Councilmember Rosendahl, you just...
I'm just curious. I'm thinking of, Father John Baca telling me that I'm not doing the right moral thing by putting it on a Sunday. Has that issue been addressed in the last short period of time? I got a tremendous amount of clergy saying you can't do it, you can't move it back. Obviously, what the chair was saying about the weather, not consulting the runners, Memorial Day weekend, I'm a veteran. Sometimes people like to be with family. So these were real issues that impacted me. But then the religious community, I'm an old Catholic boy, so I was beginning to think I'm going to go to hell over this thing. Have they come at it?
It won't be over this thing.
Whoa! I got no comeback.
That's what they would say.
Very good, very good. No eggs for you anymore.
That's not what I'm saying. That's what they would say. Okay.
But were there religious leaders here? Did they make their pitch?
No, but we'll continue your confession, and then you could...
Okay, so anyhow,
Right.
that's my concern,
Right.
is what I've heard.
Right.
I confess, too, I wanted to reach out to the religious community, which I will.
Yeah.
But I do think we should go strongly forward with this now, and the opportunity is there. For 22 years, it ran on a Sunday. And I do feel bad because of the challenges that we've had. I have had the correspondences. You have Mr. Rosendahl. I think Mrs. Hahn, you have too.
Ms. Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, I'm sorry. Ms. Hahn or Ms.?
Ms. Hahn.
Ms. I'm sorry. Okay, good. All right. So I will reach out if I could on behalf of the committee.
People feel. How do you feel about
Well, let me just ask a question just to finish my confession. I don't usually get interrupted that much.
I give you 3 Hail Marys.
Thank you very much. We'll all get in trouble for that. But anyway, the deal is this. This is the 25th anniversary of the greatest moment of Los Angeles, which is the 1984 Games. Out of the glow of that Games, Tom Bradley, John Ferraro, and others said we must have a marathon. And the drama that took place in the 84 Games with all those athletes who came here really enlightened Los Angeles in a way that we're still off there to that glow. I am sorry that we had this rapid change in what was an important moment to gather on a Sunday. I do want to work out and with the religious community to lessen any impact that they have. And as Dwayne said, I believe that his effort will be to have them join as well in any which way and work with the organizers. I happen to I think I have been to every marathon. I have walked part of the marathon. I'm not a runner. I biked the marathon. I'm a hiker, but I see the people, and I always know the marathon's coming because in the morning at Griffith Park, you see the hundreds of runners who are just trying, and they're people that are so special to that. I wanted to just say that I have a task before we get back to have some outreach with the religious community, how we could do this without impacting them, let them know it's an important moment for the city. And the one reason about Sunday, and I say this, whether it's a holiday or not everybody gets the holiday.
That's what I said.
And also, if it's a holiday, as Mr. Rosendahl is a veteran, and Memorial Day, I believe, was originally called Decoration Day, if that's
right.
correct. And the women of the South saw the graves of the soldiers from the North, and they said, we must decorate them as well. It was women who usually take us on the right course. As always, she would like that, Ms. Hahn. And I would just say that Memorial Day does have an impact, on this aspect. So if you could allow me to reach out to the religious community to be able to give some report, and what's our time frame on this?
Well, one of the issues I believe we have is this has also been agendized to budget and finance. So we've kind of heard from the chair. This could be a problem. We've heard from the chair of budget that he was not going to take this up until after we got through the budget. So that I see as a problem. Maybe we could urge Councilmember Parks to agendize it in budget and finance, because again, what I've heard from the running community is that they want to know now to begin planning, because the first Sunday in March will come around very quickly, and we need to really make this decision one way or the other.
I think one of the key issues is that it would be ideal to have a date set for next year's event before we have the running of this year's event.
That's a great suggestion. But again, we're going to have to urge Councilmember Parks to agendize it in his committee. Howard, did you have one more thing to say?
I was just going to say what Ms. Ozawa said. And the other thing, there are other much smaller marathons that are run in smaller cities around Southern California that are actually waiting for the Los Angeles Marathon date to be set for 2010. And I would urge this committee with as much as I can, and I appreciate that Mr. Parks is knee-deep in the budget. These are horrible times for all of us.
Yeah.
But we're at the end of May when
Right.
the marathon occurs on Memorial Day.
Right.
The third Sunday in March is going to come up much sooner, and Tuesday after this year's marathon, we have got to start planning. We're already, whether it's urging Mr. Parks or some other maneuvers that can conceivably be taken, I would encourage this committee. We've got to get this thing going.
Thank
we
you.
cannot have another
City
year.
Attorney, a question. We know that we have an intention to go to a Sunday. We know that the contract there that stipulates it's a Monday.
Correct.
Is that correct? Can we say that it would be the third weekend? I mean, just to help you plan. I want it on a Sunday, because Sunday is the quietest moment in the city's 7-day cycle, where people do gather and less impact and more joy could come on the street. Does that, and then, because I don't know what the time frame, I know Mr. Parks was adamant, that he had a process, and the process.
So that's what we're doing. We're doing the process. And actually, the motion says a Sunday. And I think what we've heard is a Sunday. Every marathon in the country, except for Boston, is run on a Sunday. And I think the key to this is we had it over 20 years, ran very successfully, is now become an internationally recognized great marathon, and the tourism that comes into our city for that event, the people that fly into our airport and stay in our hotels and spend money, is something, even in especially in a bad budget year, we need. So our motion says to move it back to a Sunday in March. I would like to stay with that. I'm
with that.
Okay.
I'm with it all the way.
So let's move forward with that. I would urge everyone to contact Councilmember Parks and urge him to agendize it so we can make a decision one way or the other on behalf of our runners, who really are at the heart of our marathon. And my hats off to everyone who completes a marathon once or 47 times. Really, you are the true heroes in this town on that day, and you bring such great pride and joy. And with that, Tom, we're going to direct you to reach out to the religious community and see whether or not we can do whatever we can do to lessen the impact on a Sunday. But again, I think we should urge the religious community to join us, to have their congregation members standing out there on the corner passing out water to our marathons, and reminding people that the real race in life is another one completely.
The responsibility doesn't rest solely with the city of LA to reach out to the Sunday religious community. Mr. Pillar, the president of the marathon, and I have a meeting tomorrow at 2:00 with some representatives of the religious community. We take that as our responsibility too, but as you both have pointed out, this race has been run for 20 some odd years on Sunday. We feel that it should continue that way, and we also feel that we can mitigate a lot of the religious leaders' concerns.
Thank you, and we'll express our appreciation to the McCourts for being so cooperative in us doing this. We've got another big item on the agenda today, so Tom, would you like to move that we approve this motion? So it's moved and seconded that this committee approves the motion to begin the negotiations to move the marathon back to Sunday in March. Thank you. Why don't we take the living wage one? Let's move to item 4, and then we'll go back to.
Under item 4, as requested by this committee, the city administrative officer submits a report on health care, insurance costs, and options for private sector workers at Los Angeles International Airport. This is part of the committee's consideration of the matter of wages, health care, and working conditions for passenger services workers at LAX.
Okay, those of you who are leaving, we ask you to go ahead and move on outside, take your conversations out in the hallway, and let's get on to item 4. And we're here to discuss the city's living wage ordinance, which has not been looked at for over 10 years. And particularly, we're looking at the health care piece of the living wage ordinance and whether or not it is sufficient to actually allow workers to buy health care, which was the point. And so I'd like to hear from city attorney, from CAO, and from Lane first. So Carolina, you want to come up too, and the CAO and the city attorney if you're here. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Tom Coltis, City Administrative Office.
We're having a hard time hearing you. Guys. Okay.
Tom Coltis, City Administrative Office. Before you have a report back on health insurance costs and as it relates to the living wage ordinance. Living wage ordinance was established in 1997, and it established a wage rate of $8.50 per hour and $1.25 if the employer per hour if the employer did not provide health care.
Right.
The $1.25 per hour represents $2,600 of additional.
Could you speak a little bit? We're having a, maybe move your book to the side and get the microphone right up to your.
Okay.
Right, speak into it.
So the $1.25 represents $2,600 per year in additional compensation. When we look at the issues of health care in Los Angeles and the state of California and the United States in general, health care is a major problem. Uninsured rates, depending upon the source, range from 17 to 30%, depending upon where you are in the country. In the state of California, the documents we looked at indicate about a 20% rate. It's possibly a little higher in Southern California than that. And ultimately, this is a major problem for the United States. It's a problem for this region, and the capacity of any single jurisdiction to address this issue is probably not really there. This does look like an issue that is a federal issue that ultimately will be resolved in some way, shape, or another, but I don't think we have any idea what that will look like.
Yeah. So, what is your recommendation?
Briefly, we did a study in relationship to the airport hospitality zone. We requested our health benefits consultant, Mercer, to survey what was going on in healthcare in the hospitality industry, which employed less than 500 people, more than 500 people, and then also generally in the Los Angeles area as a whole. And the results of that study indicate that pretty much what we expected to see, which is that healthcare is expensive. Healthcare on a per employee per year cost is about $6,000. When you compare that to the $2,600 that is provided by the living wage ordinance, clearly there's a major disconnect there. The number of employers that are offering health care in the what you would consider the lower wage segment is roughly around 58% or so. And interestingly enough, simply because of what is being offered and the price of health care, 35% of the people decline it because it ends up being 13% of their pay. And when you lay out the list of obligations for individuals, health care doesn't always necessarily come to the top of the list because housing and food come to the top of the list. Deductibles in the neighborhood of, and when you talk about plan design, all health cares have plan design issues. And when you look at the family deductibles are running $900 to $2,000. And if you're making $12,000 a year, obviously that's not a sustainable number, so you decline health care. Our recommendation on this issue is twofold. One, it's clearly time to look at an adjustment.
Good recommendation.
The issue is, it's an ordinance amendment, so our first recommendation is request the city attorney to draft a revision so that we can adjust the healthcare component in the ordinance as it relates to what that adjustment should be. Therein lies a fundamental issue. When the living wage ordinance was adopted, it was a very controversial ordinance at that point in time. Not a lot of discussion around healthcare. Most of the issue was on the wage rate.
Right.
The healthcare issue was discussed, but it was not the driving issue of the ordinance. The ordinance does index the wage component. It indexes it basically to CPI, but tied to our retirement system.
But it did not index the health
But it
care.
did not index the healthcare component. As we've seen, the wage rate has moved from 8.50 to 10. The healthcare component has stayed the same.
Right.
And so clearly there's some adjustment that needs to be made. Should it be tied to CPI? I would recommend no, because CPI measures an entirely different parcel of...
Well, what's your recommendation?
Our recommendation is that we review it every 5 years and set that dollar amount based on...
Well, what's your recommendation initially, if it's not tied to CPI?
At this point, we do not have a specific dollar amount recommendation because if we're attempting to go back and duplicate what $1.25 represented in 1997, because my expectation here is that $1.25 didn't buy health care in 1997 either.
Okay, so what is your recommendation for a number?
Recommendation is that we go back, we attempt to benchmark what the $1.25 represented then, and attempt to bring that forward in some logical fashion. And we'll have to come back with a report on what that looks like. The issues are, one, employers obviously, if we're going to impose this requirement, they need to have some advance notice to be able to plan for this.
Right.
The other issue is, and I don't have exact data on how much living wage contracting work the city of Los Angeles is actually doing. So there will be, assuming that the employer passes the cost on to the contracting entity, which would be us in this case, there would be some fiscal impact to us. And at this point, we have no idea what that would be.
Well, now, this, what we're doing here is just for the workers at LAX.
If we're segmenting the ordinance to only deal with that
We
particular
are.
piece, then that's a different issue. But
That
if
is-
we're amending the living wage ordinance in totality, then we are potentially impacting the fiscal issues.
No,
of the city of
this was asking you to report on health care insurance costs and options for private sector workers at Los Angeles International Airport.
And
So it would not have impact back to the city.
And that's a critical instruction for the city attorney as...
Did you
because-
miss that?
Because we're revising the ordinance.
Right.
And so if we're revising the ordinance to carve out that piece,
Yes.
that's different than carving, than.
Right. Did you miss that on your instructions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because that's kind of a big piece of this. Okay. So we'll ask you to report back to this committee and recommend an amount for an adjustment for the workers at LAX. That's where we're going to start instead of doing it citywide. We're going to start with that piece. Okay. Carolina.
Thank you so much. Carolina Briones with
Carolina,
the...
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. LA Alliance for a New Economy. And really quick before I start, I just want to recognize some folks that are here with us today. As you mentioned, we're talking about the airport, and we've got lots of airport service workers here. I'd like everybody just to stand up for 1 second, be recognized. Folks take time off of work to come. And
well, thank you for being here.
We really appreciate all their effort.
Being here.
And just to briefly mention why the need is so urgent at the airport, and also the fact that almost 60% of all the living wage covered workers citywide are at LAX alone. And
Say that again.
Almost 60% of all the living wage covered workers throughout the city are concentrated at LAX alone. So that's really where we see the bulk of living wage workers. And also, according to our research, that's where folks without health care are really concentrated. And so that's why
how many of those 60% don't have the health care?
There are over 5,000 workers and their family members, because we really think this is a family issue, and our guiding principle is family health care. So there's over 5,000 workers and their family members at LAX alone that either are uninsured or relying on public programs for their health care. So we're going to have some other speakers, and they're really going to outline kind of the scope of the problem, some of those facts, and the urgency that we feel about this issue. I wanted to briefly just revisit the original intent of the healthcare differential, just to make sure there's no confusion. As you know, Lane was very involved back when this was all put into place, and the purpose of that healthcare amount was really to reflect the cost of employer-provided healthcare, and to give employers a choice between providing the total compensation just through wages or providing it through a combination of wages and health benefits. For employers who didn't at that time provide health benefits, it represents an incentive to them to begin providing health benefits, because the amount that they spend on health care is exempt from taxes. And for employers that are already providing health benefits, what this allows is for them to take a credit towards the total amount of the living wage. And the healthcare differential was never intended to be used by workers to buy healthcare themselves. That's just not a smart way to buy healthcare. So it really was intended to represent the cost to employers of purchasing healthcare. So I just wanted to highlight that. We definitely agree with the CEO report that the $1.25 is not enough. And the key question really is how much is enough, and we agree that does need further study. I just want to highlight a couple of numbers that give some idea of the cost range, and this is coming from a report that we just finished, and wanted to share that with all of you guys, and also submit it. So we calculated how much does it cost to provide family health care, and one number is based on the California Healthcare Foundation survey of employer-provided health benefits, and then we also took into account the hours typically worked by living wage workers, the number of hours they usually work, right, because we have to get to a $1 per hour amount.
Right.
And so that would mean about a $3.40 increase in the higher tier of the living wage. Another number that's very useful actually comes from that same Mercer report that the CAO mentioned that they commissioned, and that details the cost of healthcare for employers in the LA metro area. If we use that as the standard, that would require about a $3.26 increase. And so when we're talking about the cost impact of this, I think it's really important to note that most of the major sectors at the airport are already meeting the standard of family health care for most of their workers. And so the mandatory increase for most sectors would be small. And those sectors include retail and food concessions, which most of them are already providing family health care, and the parking contractors, which they are providing family health care for almost all of their workers. And just to remember, we're talking about private companies operating at the airport. These are not city employees.
Right.
Can you
give us a sense of who these workers are?
Yes.
That don't have health care?
Yes.
But are so-called being paid the living wage?
Right. So the biggest affected sector is the airlines and their contracted employees. That's the sole biggest affected sector.
So who are these workers?
These are folks that do everything from security work, searching airplane cabins, guarding airplanes, to
baggage handlers,
dealing with passengers, handling baggage, helping passengers with disabilities, providing customer service to passengers. They really keep the airport running. They're integral to the operation of the airport, and they have security roles and customer and passenger service roles as well.
And how many again of these workers do not have health care? You're saying 5,000?
5,000 workers and their family members, including their family members.
Oh, so that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So how many workers?
I believe. You know what? Now you're testing me. It's a
Okay.
good quiz. It's a good quiz.
All right. Well, you don't have. Okay. Well, you can get that number back to us.
I definitely can.
So your recommendation is: do you have a recommendation of a number that you'd
Yes.
like to see?
Well, we feel it's in this range, right? The increases, anywhere
three-
from 325 to 340. Those are the
Okay.
two numbers that we're looking at.
Okay.
And just want to emphasize that because the biggest affected sector is the airlines, we've also analyzed, it's very typical for living wage covered employers when you look at studies of the impact of these living wage laws. What they do a lot of times is pass the cost through to the customer. That's a typical response. And so we looked at what that would mean, and on the average, for the airlines, on the average passenger ticket, that would be about a 25-cent increase in the cost of a ticket, which we feel is, quite reasonable given all the benefits that we're going to gain from this. And so also just really quick wanted to note that if we, increase the differential at the airport, it's not going to affect the city's general fund because
Right.
the airport's budget is separate.
Right.
And then just a final point, we feel it's really important to index the differential going forward, as you mentioned,
Right.
so we don't end up in the same problem in a few years.
And so the employers can plan for it as well.
Sure. And we think it makes sense to use the same index that's currently
Right.
used for the wage and just use it for the differential. That's going to make sure it keeps up with inflation.
Right.
There is, an issue that healthcare costs have often outpaced inflation. So we would also suggest a provision that does allow periodic review and adjustment.
And do you like the every 5 years idea? Or would you like to see it sooner than that?
That might be a little too long. We might
Okay.
look at a little more often.
You'd like to see
in combination with the escalator that's
the
currently
index.
in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every
which is an annual,
2 or
right?
3 years, or
So there's right. What's currently in place is an annual increase, and we think that should be applied to the differential.
right.
And then in addition to that, every 2 or 3 years, just
Review it and take a
how
look at it.
Since the escalator is not based
Right.
on healthcare costs,
Right.
exactly as he's mentioned. So.
Right. And I think, I think for the city, I think one of the things we've get criticized for is waiting so long to do something, over a decade, and then everybody screams. It's like we didn't raise parking for 17 years. We kept it the same. And then when we raised it all at once, that's what we got criticized for. So we need to do a better job of just, having a policy that we believe in, following it through, and then, giving, regular updates and increases as we go along, which is perfectly reasonable and perfectly acceptable. But I think what we've gotten criticized in the past for is waiting so long and then saying, oh, we really believe in this, and now we're going to hit everybody hard. So, Mr. Rosendahl, did you have some questions?
I just want to be clear, I'm running in and out of the room because there's another committee that I'm on that's holding a meeting called Transportation, and they're in the midst of another contentious issue, so it's kind of nutso that I have to run back and forth because I'm on both committees. So I apologize as you see me running and going. But I want to make a few comments and then ask a question from the CAO and the city attorney. In my opinion, extending health care to these 5,000 workers at LAX would cost $1.25 per airline ticket, and I think it makes complete sense to go forward with it. And I'm very sympathetic to the argument that these frontline workers are the first to be exposed to potential health hazards like the recent swine flu epidemic. I mean, you guys are right there in its face, and I can't understand why we wouldn't do everything we can to get these workers health care now. I support the CAO's recommendations in principle, but I do have some questions. The original request this committee made to the CAO was for recommendations on extending health care to the airport workers specifically. I appreciate the general analysis of the living wage ordinance and the recommendations to make changes to the living wage ordinance, but my immediate question is how these changes can be made for health care workers first. Do we have a CAO city attorney opinion on that? What's your opinion? What's the deal? City attorney too, come on up. I mean, I'd like to know from both of you your opinion on it. Did the CAO do a review of the impact of this healthcare increase on LAX employers specifically? Did you?
No, we did not do the specifics of the LAX employers.
They didn't read the motion.
With regards to the previous question, yes, I think you can clearly carve out one group from another. It's a matter of how you structure the ordinance.
City attorney?
Well, my understanding is that this...
Identify yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Teresa Stamus with the City Attorney's Office. My understanding of what the committee's seeking to do is to adjust the health care benefits for contractors at the airport.
Right. Yes.
And we're prepared to do that. We just need a number to plug in and to work with staff on the legislative findings.
Good, because that's the direction we want to go. The Lane report cites the California Health Care Foundation's annual survey of premium costs for employer-provided health care plan as a potential source for annual indexing. Has the CAO considered that?
We looked at a lot of indexes. I did not specifically look at that one. The recommendation for visiting it periodically is that the indexes tend to create uncontrolled cost, basically. And that doesn't seem like the most appropriate fiscal control mechanism. It does do a good job sustaining the benefit level, but it does introduce a level of lack of control over a fiscal structure. And when we looked at this, and I apparently did not read the motion sufficiently well to see that it was focused narrowly. We looked at it in the broader context of living wage, and therefore we would be introducing another issue where we're driven by an index and not by our fiscal situation.
Okay.
There's certainly no legal issue with indexing the number.
Good.
Okay, and then my last point is I'd like to propose an amendment to the CAO's two recommendations that in each case it makes specific that the adjustments to the living wage ordinance would only apply to LAX workers, so that we define it. Could that be done?
Yes.
Okay. My bottom line is this, is a living wage.
That's the motion. The motion says that.
That's what it says. Just
Yeah.
want to make sure we get that confirmed in that.
Right.
I don't even know what a living wage is anymore. It's not $10.64. It's $15, $20 if you really want to be honest about it, but we're going to be modest in it. What figure are we talking about for a living wage?
They don't have a figure.
You have a figure?
Yeah, we're talking about a little bit more than a $3 increase to the top tier.
Okay, so what would it bring it to then?
It's a little bit over $14, and it's actually somewhat comparable to the San Jose living wage. That's
Right.
another important point, is that there are, City of LA really has the lowest living wage of any major city in California. We've got, over $14 at San Jose, and we've got, companies
Okay, so
that have
first thing is
adjusted
we
to
would
those
bring
kind
that
of
up to
standards.
$14, right? Which would make sense, and then health care on top of it.
No, that's the top tier, actually.
So that includes health care?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
We're at $11.25
Yes.
now. We think we need,
It should be a bargain for any
a little more
business
than a
guy.
$3 increase. So
Okay,
Yes,
it's
thank
a
you.
no-brainer for me to do both, okay?
Thank
to bring
you.
it up to 14.
Thank you.
That's what
Thank
I would
you.
recommend, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, why don't we have a few minutes left. Let's hear from some of the people here who are today. Robin Wilson, Maria Romero, and Rabbi Allison Abrams, and Kathy Depp. Let's start. We'll give you a minute apiece. Carolina. Yeah, go ahead. Come on. Okay, we're going to give you a minute apiece.
Hi, my name is Robin Wilson. I am an LAX worker. And as they stated, we do everything from the plane to the curb. So we are the first ones, like Mr. Rosendahl said, that come in contact with everybody and anything that they're going to do. So, with the outbreak of the swine flu, I use public health care.
Mhm.
So It's been all in the news. Everybody's fighting for the vaccination. I'm sure I'm going to be one of the last employees to get it because I don't have health care. I don't have a provider that's out there putting out bigger dollars than the public health care system to make sure that I get a vaccination that I'm paying for. So that's my point, is that we need this health care so that people like me and everybody else in this room will be able to go to a clinic, sit comfortably, and know that the doctor that we come to visit every time we come to the doctor is going to be the same doctor that's going to know our case history and know what's going on inside our bodies and be able to treat us accurately.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Just a minute, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Mi nombre es María Romero
My name is Maria Romero.
y muchas gracias por su tiempo.
Thank you for your time.
Estamos representando miles de trabajadores del aeropuerto de Los Ángeles.
We're representing thousands of workers at LAX.
Cuando se me presentó la oportunidad de trabajar en el aeropuerto de Los Ángeles, me sentí feliz
I was really happy when I got a chance to work at LAX
porque pensé que les iba a dar una mejor vida a mis hijos
because I thought I was going to be able to give a better life to my kids.
y ahora me siento muy triste
And now, honestly, I'm sad
porque no les puedo proveer un cuidado de salud
because I can't give them any kind of health care at all.
y es una responsabilidad como madre
And as a mother, I feel like it's my
la que tengo en
responsibility
cuidar a mis hijos.
to take care of my kids.
Ahora los trabajadores de Los Ángeles se sienten desamparados,
But right now, we feel unsupported
tristes.
at the airport. We're sad. We're unhappy.
El primer caso que se presentó en Colorado de esta fiebre, de esta gripa porcina, fue de un trabajador del aeropuerto de Colorado.
In the state of Colorado, the first case of swine flu to appear was
Y
an
los-
airport worker at DIA.
Los trabajadores de Los Ángeles nos sentimos desconcertados, olvidados,
And we're very disconcerted by this. We feel forgotten,
pero tenemos que trabajar.
but we have to work.
Tenemos que darle de comer a nuestros
We have
hijos.
to feed our kids.
Aunque seamos los primeros en recibir a los pasajeros que vienen de cientos de países
Even though we're the first to receive
y
passengers
que nos
from all
tengamos
over
que
the place,
contagiar de miles de enfermedades,
we're at risk of exposure to a number of different illnesses.
tenemos que estar ahí porque nosotros cuidamos el aeropuerto.
We have to be there because we take care of the airport too.
¿Y a dónde otro lugar podemos ir si no es aquí con ustedes?
And where else do we have to go if not
Porque
here
está en
with
sus
you?
manos
This is in your hands
cuidarnos a nosotros
to take care of us
como residentes de California
as residents of California
y trabajadores del aeropuerto.
and workers at the airport.
Y confiamos el 100% en ustedes,
And we trust you 100%
que ustedes nos van a ayudar a tener seguro médico.
that you can make this happen, that we can
Muchas
get health
gracias.
insurance.
Muchísimas gracias.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Allie Abrams, and I'm Director of Faith Community Outreach for CLUE, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. And you've heard all the numbers. There's obviously a healthcare crisis facing millions of Americans, but we're in Los Angeles, so that's where we have to deal with.
Right.
And the bottom line is that this is a moral issue. Our scriptures all call on us as stewards of God's earth, that we are all created in the image of God, and to be treating the image of God like this is frankly immoral. And our scriptures say that you don't withhold a worker's wages. And that's what's happening. These workers' wages are being withheld. So across faiths, across this city, we are standing with workers because while there is economic crisis and there are all kinds of crises, there's a moral crisis and there's a spiritual crisis. And there's just absolutely no way that the religious community can be people of faith and watch this happen. So we're calling on you, and I'm offering you blessings of strength and wisdom to stand with these workers. I know it's hard.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Kathy Deppie. I'm with an organization called 9 to 5, National Association of Working Women, and we are organizing women to stand up for their rights in the workplace, particularly living wage rights. And we have fought all over the country for the living wage. We're standing with the hotel workers as we did last Wednesday when they marched through the Tom Bradley terminal to call attention to the need for family health care and to the problems that the workers at the hotel are facing. Worried about swine flu, which now is a new name, I guess.
Yeah, a new name.
The best way that we can ensure that all the workers, all the employees at LAX have health care and family health care is for this committee to adjust the living wage to meet that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have Rebecca Pizzitola, Arnold Sachs, and Alex Pugh. Why did they schedule that at the same time? Why did she schedule that? Go ahead.
My name is Rebecca Pisatola. I'm the Director of Statewide Programs for Insure the Uninsured Project, and we work with a variety of stakeholders, policymakers, counties, health plans, employers, everyone who's interested in healthcare, just so we can work to cover more of California's uninsured. So at this time, you've heard some of the statistics already from other speakers, but I'll be a little repetitive. So at this time of economic crisis, 5,100 people, low-wage LAX workers and their families, lack basic health care coverage. 2,000 of them rely on state and county health services, and 3,100, including 700 children, don't access any health care at all. This means that LAX workers and their families don't have reliable access to doctors when they're sick. And according to the Families USA, in California, an estimated 8 people die per day just because they lack health care coverage. Uninsured children are 6 times more likely than insured children to go without medical care, and they're more likely to be hospitalized for things that are preventable or treatable. These children also miss more school because of these illnesses, and I'll try to sum it up.
Yeah, thank you.
But we're straining state services. We have an economic issue, and this is something that won't cost any money to the city itself. And we need to stop spending on uncompensated care and look at the living wage.
Thank you very much. Arnold?
Thank you. Kind of uncanny. This kind of reminds me of being at the county and listening to the discussions when they were considering closing MLK Hospital, and people would come in with the statistics and the low birth rates and the low health care rates and everything, but they still closed the hospital because nobody really mentioned the fact that the care that was being given at the hospital was so bad. Actually, what should have been done, and it's hard to believe when I heard the first speaker state that the health care benefits weren't really a major consideration when this law was first initiated. So, it should have been. I wonder what would have happened if it would have been called the Killing Benefits Ordinance instead of the Living Wage Ordinance. Being said that, can you segment the ordinance to 60-40 like you can in the city, like you're planning on doing, and just apply it to the airport? I haven't heard anything from the city attorney regarding that. And if you could, why not do it with the 40% and see how that turns out, and then apply it to the 60% and make it different? And you're looking for a number? Apply it to the health care cost, the raise in the health care cost per year, and see how that works out to your living wage ordinance.
Alex.
Hi. I think I'm the only person here representing the private sector, so if it's all right, I may go a few seconds over. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Alex Pugh with the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today just to express our concerns about the proposed increase in the healthcare substitute contributions. There's just a few outstanding questions that we feel need to be addressed, just so we can get our hands wrapped around what exactly is being asked of the employers. The Chamber, as you know, represents 1,600 member companies, over 700,000 employees, and our primary mission is to be a trustee for the economic prosperity of our region. We do represent airlines and services at LAX. LAX, as you know, is primary destination airport for the United States, the largest, and so is a major economic generator. What we're trying to figure out is what exactly this cost increase would be to employers. So there's just a few questions that we'd like to have clarified, including the number, classification, hours worked by the affected employees, how the increase applies to companies with union labor or CBA agreements, clarification on what the range of wage increases will be based on, and then how a cost increase will impact overall employment rates at LAX in today's economic climate. We urge the city to work with companies that are currently being regulated under the Living Wage Ordinance and ask them to reach out to these businesses in the process of drafting this proposal. I also have the LAX AAIC has a letter that I can submit to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we will work with you on getting the answers to those questions. In fact, I'd like to see, kind of a list back of exactly who the contractors are that we're talking about that would fall under this amended ordinance, so we can understand who they are and begin to reach out and meet with them. But I will say this, that clearly the workers' lack of health care affects everyone, and workers, as Councilman Rosendahl said, are on the front lines of everything, but particularly on the front lines of exposure to infectious diseases. And, you know, if they don't have health care, and clearly $1.25 an hour does not buy health care. Let's be very clear about that. That does not buy health care. So we are hearing the stories of workers having to take time off to go to clinics or emergency rooms and waiting. We heard one a couple weeks ago of a worker waiting 48 hours in an emergency room with her child who was bitten by a dog. And that's what happens when you don't have health care insurance. And we simply can't afford that. And I believe extending health care to workers and their families will stabilize families and help strengthen our economy at a time when our economy needs strengthening at every single point. And the other thing I'm concerned about, and I think the business community and the chamber should be concerned about, is the turnover rate at the airport with our workers. 30% of workers have been there less than a year, and over 50% have been there less than 2 years. And health insurance has been shown to improve the retention of workers. And we have workers that are handling baggage, inspecting the airplanes for possible security breaches, and are providing for the tourists that we want to come here that first line of hospitality and professionalism that changes people's opinions of where they would like to fly. So that's an issue I think the business community should be very concerned about. And I will say we are investing billions of dollars in modernizing LAX, which is something that I have championed and I believe is important to do. But if we're going to be modernizing the buildings, then we need to be investing in the workers who make the difference at that airport. It is my conclusion that raising the piece of the living wage that will actually buy adequate health care for the workers and their families promotes safety and security at LAX, and it's something that I think is the time to do is now. I know we're going to hear from the airlines that it is not the time, that they are struggling and that they're trying to hold on, but I think it is the time because I think we can't afford not to provide for health care for our workers at the airport. I want stability. I want happy, healthy workers at LA International Airport because that is as important or more important than having new carpeting and new paint and new terminals. You are the infrastructure that really makes our airport work. And 25 cents on a ticket is a price that everyone can afford. People will be able to afford that more than they can afford an extra $25 or $50 for checking their baggage, or an extra $90 when their baggage happens to be 1 ounce over the weight. So the airlines are finding ways to charge customers. So 25 cents a ticket to provide health care for the people that make the airport run is certainly not too much to ask at this time. So I would like to amend the CAO's recommendation along with Mr. Rosendahl to request that the city attorney draft a revision to the living wage ordinance to require a review and adjustment of the health insurance component of the ordinance for LAWA with the goal of covering family health insurance. And we're taking out the word possible before adjustment. We want this to happen. And also I'd like to amend the CAO's second recommendation slightly to instruct the CAO along with the CLA to report back to the committee with a recommended amount for the increase in the differential to accomplish the goal of covering family health insurance to be effective with the ordinance revision. I'd also like the CLA and the CAO to report back with a recommendation for the appropriate indexing method. Let's take another look at how we can index this amount. And hopefully we can all work together. I encourage the business community to stay at the table with us. Let's work on this together. But I actually think this is the time that we need to do it. And we have in our hands, Councilman Rosendahl, we are responsible for what goes on at LA International Airport. I can't necessarily be responsible for what's going on at the federal government or the state government. Maybe someday we'll be in those positions. But right now, we are... But right now, we are stewards of what happens in Los Angeles, and we are stewards of what happens at LA International Airport. So it's completely fitting and appropriate that we do this today and move this motion forward.
And let me enthusiastically second her motions.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, I want to make sure inherent in those motions, it includes all LAWA workers, be they in Ontario as well as at LAX, or be they over there in Van Nuys. Wherever LAWA has presence, I want this living wage and the health care benefits to extend to anyone who's involved in passengers and airplanes in those airports that are the LAWA airports. And frankly, if we don't take care of our own, who can we take care of? So we enthusiastically support you, and we look forward to this passing the City Council and becoming law as quickly as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
For your leadership.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for all of you for taking time to come down here. We like to hear from you. We listen to you. We pay attention to you. We care about you. And we thank you for your service, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, or many years at our LA International Airport. You make us proud at every single level. And we want to help you.
Amen.
Amen.
She say baby. She say baby. She say baby.
Thank you. Okay, do we have time to do the port discount rate, the amping? Should we do that real quickly?
Sure.
1 minute? Okay.
Under item 2, the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for approval a permanent board order and accompanying ordinance to amend the tariff, Section 12, Item 1210, and the amendment would exempt ocean-going vessels that use alternative maritime power while at berth from the port's 15% service charge for the use of shoreside electric power.
Okay, explain to us what you're asking for and why we should give it to you.
We're asking to exempt the vessels.
Identify yourself for the record.
Michael Christensen, Deputy Executive Director of the Port. We're asking to exempt amped vessels from an add-on to the DWP charge for their energy use. It's a provision in the tariff that predated all of our AMP and high-use applications. We're trying our very best to incentivize the early use of shore power. And honestly, if we didn't do this, they would simply negotiate their own interconnection agreements with DWP. We have never collected this up to this date anyway.
So there's a DWP amping rate?
There is, yes.
And it's higher, or there's a...
It's lower.
It's lower.
We've negotiated a lower rate with DWP, again, to incentivize the use of shore power.
There's an existing 15% service charge for all ships that use plug-in electric power.
And who collects the service charge?
The port would collect it.
Okay. So I'm confused. It's a service charge on top of what they pay.
That's correct.
So it's higher.
It would be a service charge on top of the DWP charge that would disincentivize the use of it.
Right. That's what I was saying. So they're paying a higher rate right now.
No.
They're
paying a lower rate for amping, and then this also would exempt those ships from the additional service charge.
Which they're not paying.
We are not collecting.
You're not
service
collecting.
charge.
Okay. So you just want to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Okay. So you've never collected it. They've never paid it.
Correct.
You want to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Okay. How many shipping lines are we talking about that are currently amping?
As of this moment, right now, 2.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of this calendar year, we'll add the cruise terminal and Evergreen.
How many ships are we talking about?
We're talking about close to 80% of all the ship calls at China Shipping, and one vessel currently at YTI with 2 more vessels. Evergreen will be probably close to 6 or 7 vessels.
And your plans for installing more AMP facilities? are
fast
what?
as we can. We have under construction right now TRAPAC, 4 berths at TRAPAC.
Mhm.
With China Shipping, we'll add 1 more berth to China Shipping.
Mhm.
We have stimulus applications in for a half a dozen more
Mm-hmm.
berths.
And are the shipping lines, now they've got you here, are the shipping lines expressing interest in the bonnet as opposed to plugging in, or what are you hearing?
Yes,
from the industry?
Yes, Councilman. There are 2 in particular. One at TRAPAC that takes a variety of vessels from various lines, given that's a stevedoring run terminal, and the Plains All American, which again takes the large crude carriers, often who only have 1 call. So we have
Right.
2 terminals actively
Right.
engaged in looking at the bonnet.
Right, okay. So only if they call very infrequently are they interested in that. Otherwise, everyone's good with amping.
Everyone on the container side, the VLCC side, has got another issue related to the types of vessel. But
Okay.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay, and you know that before we approve the lease for Plains All American, we certainly wanted to see language in the lease that specifically called out the use of alternative emission catchers since they will not be amping. And that's something I'm really paying attention to, as you know.
We
But
understand, yes.
Okay, but I think this is a good request for you to just kind of do away with this, so I have no other...
I'll second it.
Okay, let's approve that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is that it?
Item 5.
Okay. LA Inc., that's what you guys are here for, sorry. Okay.
The Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the second amendment to the contract with LA Inc., which formalizes the Strategic International Marketing Alliance between the department and LA Inc. The amendment would revise the scope of work, implement a revised contract accounting system, establish an interim reimbursement schedule, reduce the annual contract cost from a maximum of $6.8 million to $5.2 million per year, and require LAWA and LA Inc. to, I forget what it is. I'm sorry. The CAO has submitted a report and recommendation for approval of the contract amendment.
You know, yeah, I mean, I think what we would be interested in is how does this contract different than in the past? Because we know there were some issues with the FAA, and we just want to know, will the FAA be okay with this? So if you could just kind of touch on those.
Very quickly. As you know, Mike Molina, LAWA External Affairs. As you know, last summer, FAA came and did an audit, and through a preliminary determination, found areas within the LA Inc. contract that needed to be reviewed. We have gone ahead and done that review, and that is what's before you today. Consistent with some of the concerns that FAA had, this revised or this amended contract has, number 1, a better payment procedure and reporting process. Number 2, a more defined scope of work that provides LA Inc.'s services under a narrower focus of marketing LAX as a destination as opposed to Los Angeles as a region, and through a reimbursables procedure that is more recognizable and more clearly defined in line with FAA's revenue policy.
Questions?
Yes.
If I could, just for the record, too. When do we expect the FAA final determination to be ready regarding its compliance review audit of LAX?
We've asked FAA a number of times regarding the status of the final determination. Each time we are told that it is in the works, so I can't answer the question when, except that it is any day.
What programmatic changes have been made to bring the LA Inc. services in compliance with the FAA?
Basically, we have removed all language that has shown or that was existent, showing that this contract could be used to market Los Angeles as a region. The marketing of the city as a region would be deemed by the FAA as non-compliant, so we've removed all that type of terminology and focused it back to a contract that markets LAX as a destination.
What changes have we made to the required record and receipt keeping specifically?
There is a more clearly defined process by which LA Inc. staff have to time card their work, showing exactly what work they do for the airport versus work they do for the city, and a better method by which reimbursables are provided. So LAX knows exactly what percentage of work they do is what can be reimbursed by the airport.
Two quick questions. Who at LAWA will be responsible for signing off on reimbursements to LA Inc.? And
I am,
how will that review process be different from the previous contract?
I'm the one who will sign off, and the way it'll be different is that LA Inc. now is required, rather than to submit a one-page with a one-line services rendered for this amount, they are now required to submit a binder full of information that clearly demonstrates what they have done for the airport in the previous month, including timesheets of the workers in our international offices, the contacts that they have made, the marketing that they have done, the travel shows that they have attended, et cetera.
Great. Before my last question, has the FAA worked with you on this procedure? Are they comfortable with it? Is it something they understand?
It's really not within their purview to work with us along the way. They certainly were aware that we were going through an amendment which they enthusiastically endorsed.
Right.
And and they've been monitoring it along the way.
Okay.
And it's very clear that the amendments made are consistent with the preliminary determination.
Very good. And last question is, we're reducing the maximum annual contract cost from $6.8 million to $5.2 million.
Correct.
I was under the impression that a more significant portion of our expenditures at LA Inc. over the years was brought into question by the FAA. Does this mean that we have justified most of those expenditures and brought them into compliance with FAA rules?
We feel that we have, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, because and it would be nice. I think the interesting point is they're not used to so-called working with us, which is a problem until they find an error, and then we got dinged.
Right.
So that's kind of been their MO, which is unfortunate. And I think it's a fine line you walk between marketing Los Angeles and marketing LA International Airport. I mean, the reason you want people to come to LAX is because you want them to come to LA. So I mean, I think it's an odd. It's a very fine line that you're going to have to watch very closely.
And I think, and LA Inc. would speak more to this than I would, but I would say that the work would continue, whether it's LA as a region or LAX
Right.
as a destination.
Right.
It's just the amount that we
Right.
can reimburse.
Right. Okay. Do you have anything to say? No. Okay. Thank you very much. And I've got a public comment on this before we vote.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Arnold Sachs.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, I'll pass on this.
Okay, good.
Just go to my public comment.
Great. Okay, so we can vote on this.
Terrific, yes. So
Moved
moved,
and
yes.
seconded. Okay, so moved. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to public comment. Arnold Sachs. Thank you for being so gracious to us as a committee.
15 seconds on 4 different items.
Okay.
You're multitasking like
Yes, I
everybody
am.
else around here.
Okay, number one. Did you read in the newspaper last week when they, a couple weeks ago, when LAWA authorized some contracts? Bradley West? Where did that come up from? What's the status of the midfield concourse? You know what's amazing about the Bradley West building is it's included in the architectural design that they've modeled in the lobby, but the runways to the midfield concourse are not included. I'm really concerned about that. And they got more money. The FAA audit, regarding that last item, I did have a question regarding the fact that the chairperson of the LAWA was looked into by the FAA audit that you brought up, and that's my only concern about that. Is the commission chairman for LAWA is the chairperson of LA Inc. It came out in the newspaper. Solar project at Palmdale. I can show it to you. I'll give you a copy down. The solar project at Palmdale, what's the status of that? Even though the initiative failed, where are you going with it? You got the opportunity to do the acreage. And finally, the airport is a propriety department like the harbor. And I believe that they mentioned something at the last meeting regarding information from the harbor is just as a request and not necessarily something you have to follow. It's
Thank you.
beholding to city council laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience wishing to address this committee? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
There you go.